I'm James with Net News Ledger. Here in the studio we have Erin Bottle. And Erin, you've been concerned about things happening in our city lately. What do our viewers need to know?
My concerns in the city has been with respect to the incitement of hate, the incitement of violence, and the misinformation that is being projected out there in the Thunder Bay community concerning the Indigenous populations of this community. There are members of this community who have cited very disunifying language and rhetoric that is very misinforming about the history of the Indigenous peoples of this continent, and including the historical relationship that the Indigenous peoples have in this city.
Mm-hmm. Now, what can we do about this? Because it's silly to me and to so many of us in Thunder Bay that people seem to play the race card and treat people badly. So we've had people getting, spoons thrown at them, hot coffee thrown at them when they're walking, or bricks, or egging going on in the city, and a lot of verbal slurs as well. What should we be doing?
I think we need to take a proactive approach as a community in standing against such language that is very damaging to the relationship building of the city. With respect to an individual that I had sent a message to at the National Day of Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Tamara Ward Johnson, that we need to stand up against that kind of language, and that we need to also bring this message out to the general population in the city in general, that we need to also wake up to the historical relationship that the Indigenous peoples have with this, with the Crown of England, and co-founding this continent under the 1763 24 Nation Silver Covenant chain, and the belt that had founded this country. That's the 1763 Treaty Belt. That historical relationship in this city, the Indigenous populations contribute to a great economy of this city by participating in the economy of the city. And how we can counter this relationship building is to understand it and to counter it and to speak out against it, and to raise the issues of disrespectful dialogue that is to take place in the city. And that people such as Tamara Ward Johnson and those that support her ideology, in challenging them in also understanding the true historical relationships that the Indigenous peoples have with the Crown of England, including the Crown of Canada and its citizens of this country.
Now, you've got some work you're doing on this?
Yeah, I'm going to be initiating a unity message to the city, and to a call out to the Indigenous people of this city, in saying that this upcoming municipal election that is coming up, that we have to stand up against such racist ideology in boycotting and supporting a vote against Tamara Ward Johnson, and also standing up to the message that she's putting out there on social media and misinforming a lot of the general population about the Indigenous peoples in this community, in attacking our children and attacking our young people in the city.
You're going to be busy with a lot of work. How do we get voters out to actually, like, one of the issues that happens, a lot of the Anishinaabe people don't seem to vote in the civic elections. They vote in their band elections in the north, but they have a vote here in Thunder Bay as well, which is where they're living. How can we encourage people to vote?
I really strongly believe that our people, when you become a citizen of any town, in any municipality, anywhere in this country, that your voice as a resident in those municipalities, in those cities and towns, your voice also matters as a resident in those cities and towns. For example, in the city of Thunder Bay, a message out there to all of our relations is we need to stand up against this type of message that is being delivered by Tamara Ward Johnson and by her supporters, in taking a stand against this type of language, this very destructive language to the relationship building initiatives that is currently taking place in the city. The relationship building begins with your voice, acknowledging that your voice in the political election processes has a lot of weight in terms of what changes that can be made into building that relationship and creating that relationship building and engaging in the way of capacity and acknowledging that we do have a strong voice in this city and that we have a voice in this city and that we can create change in standing up against such tyranny and language of hatred and divide in this city. It begins with you, begins with me. How we can do this is to support the Indigenous voting right that we have within these towns and these cities right across the country, and participating in these processes that we now exist in within the confines of Canadian democracy processes. That is one way that we can counter such dividing language that is being projected by Tamara Ward-Johnson and followers that have voted for her in the city. We need to send a strong message that we are going to stand up against that. We're going to stand up against the attack of our children and youth in the city.
Miigwech.
Thank you very much for having me. Miigwech.